Hi, I'm Amanda and I work for Wild Interiors. Today we're going to do a DIY video for a moss pole. Now moss poles are used in vining and climbing plants like pothos and monsteras. That's actually what we have here today. This is a monstera that came out of our greenhouses about 1.5 years ago. It originally came in a 5-inch grow pot, which is the standard size at Wild Interiors, but we're actually going to repot it today before we make the moss pole. So the first thing you want to do is see if your plant needs to be repotted. So we actually have a lot of repotting tips and posts about repotting on our website. You can check that out, wildinteriors.com. So we're going to repot this monstera first today. So the first thing you want to do is, if your plant is in a grow pot, you want to take it out of the grow pot. So that's the grow pot there. And you want to shake any excess soil off the roots. And as you begin to repot, you want to fill dirt in around the center of the roots and stem until the plant begins to feel stabilized. The plant is going to fall over, especially if it's leggy and needs a moss pole, and that's okay. And you want to make sure you push down on the soil until it's nice and compacted. And it'll look something like this. So some tools you'll need to make this moss pole are a pair of scissors, some twine, an actual moss pole. Now you can purchase these prefabricated at a garden center or a hardware store. You can also use PVC pipe and wrap your own moss around it. This one we just bought prefabricated. And just to make it a little bit fancier, we dyed our own reindeer moss. So when you use dyed moss, you want to make sure you dye it yourself. Store dyed moss tends to get colors and chemicals all over the plant, so you want to just be careful with that. So you want to make sure you thoroughly rinse it out. Some color will come off when you do that, and that's okay. So you want to take your moss pole and make sure the reindeer moss is nice and wet before you apply it to the pole. That will make sure it adheres a little bit better. So you want to take some moss, kind of wring out the water, and you want the moss to feel still wet, but not soaking wet. And then you can begin to apply it. I'm just going to kind of freehand a pattern on here, but you could really do anything that you want. So you can lay it across. So as you apply the moss, it is damp, so it will start to adhere to the pole, but generally it's going to start to fall off. So you want to take an empty bowl and rest the moss pole on top of the bowl. After you have the moss pole resting on the bowl, you're ready to start securing the moss to the pole. So you want to take your string or your floral wire and start wrapping it very tightly around the pole. And as you do this, some's going to fall off, and that's okay. You can kind of go back in and tuck pieces of moss under the string. And you want to begin wrapping around the pole. And I'm just going to go back over it again and secure it one more time. And as you can see, that's starting to secure to the pole. All right, and there's our first section of the dyed reindeer moss. And you can repeat this as much as you want. You can make your own pattern. And I'm just gonna do a couple more sections of moss. So once you're finished securing moss to the pole with the twine, you can kind of go back in and take clumps of moss and fill in any gaps that you see. Just kind of shove it underneath the string or the wire or whatever you use to fasten the moss to the pole. And again, we dyed this moss, so you're seeing some color here. You can wear gloves if you want, but it does rinse off. And then the next thing you want to do is you can take some scissors and kind of cut the excess ends from where you secured with the twine. So you want to take your plant, take the moss pole with the spike facing down, and drive it through the center of the pot. And you want to take some of the potting soil that you used earlier and put it again around the base of the pole, and that's just going to help it really stay in place. And just like when you repotted the plant, you want to make sure you push firmly down on the soil to really ensure that the pole is safe and secure in there. So once that's on, you're going to take your plant and kind of line it up where you want it to begin to climb on the pole. So very much like the moss, you're going to attach the plant to the pole either with twine or wire. So you're going to take a piece of twine and begin attaching the plant to the moss pole. So there's really no right or wrong way to attach your plant to the moss pole. You just want to make sure you're not pulling too tight. And you can attach it at as many points as you want, depending on how much you want your plant to fan out, or if you'd like it to be more compact to the pole. And there you have it. This is your DIY decorative moss pole. So what you want to do when you care for your moss pole is you want to make sure that you're misting it every time you water. Moss holds a lot of moisture, which is good for plants like a monstera who like humidity. So each time you water, you're just going to want to take a spray bottle and just mist it lightly with water. I'm Amanda with Wild Interiors. For more tips and tricks for your houseplants, check out wildinteriors.com.